Hello, and welcome to Weed and Grub.
You can. In fact, I encourage it. Why am I starting with you can't? Please send more midnight lasagna videos.
It's the greatest thing in the world to pull a hot lasagna out of the oven and then send some hot lasagna content your way. That bubble, that sizz, that juicy, gooey drip. It's been fun. I spent a solid 2 hours assembling that lasagna yesterday, and it was the most peaceful couple of hours. It was just so nice. It's so meditative, you know? The sauce, the layering, the cheese, the baking, you know, when it starts smelling up the house and you know how good it's going to be. And then when you pull it out and it just looks so glorious, it was very satisfying.
It was so sexy. More times than not, if I get a message or a DM or anything starting around 11:45, you know it's up to no good. So most of the time I never respond because anything after the witching hour is gonna send me to hell, you know? But when you get a midnight lasagna video, the inside of my phone filled up with steam because it was so hot.
It was a very telegenic lasagna, I will say. Like when I pulled it out of the oven, I was so pleased with how it looked. And then when Walt came home late last night and I served him a piece, he looked at it and I can't remember what he thought I'd done to it, but he had some question about how I had made the cheese, because it had absorbed all of the tomato paste and it bubbled up like the perfect orange. Oh, he asked me if I'd used cheddar. He was like, did you use orange cheese in this? And I was like, no, that's how the tomato paste actually bubbled and sizzed its way into the crust. So it's actually this beautiful orange color. It's the best looking lasagna I've ever made, I have to say. And it was a truly awesome, super simple, classic recipe.
Is it beef?
I used, I did change one thing. The recipe called for sweet or hot Italian sausage, and I used half sweet Italian sausage and half ground beef.
That sounds awesome.
It was fucking awesome.
Oh, and so did you do any, because I haven't seen the inside. I haven't seen a, what would that
I haven't
be?
sent you a cross section?
I haven't seen a cross section yet, so I don't even know what to expect for the layers.
I'll send you a
inside.
hot cross later, Mike. I'll send you a hot lasagna cross later tonight. Look in your DMs for some hot lasagna action right around 11:45 tonight.
It'd be so funny. Like you're laying in bed with your significant other and all of a sudden you hear the lotion drawer or the vibrator drawer open and then you peek over and they're looking at a lasagna cross section.
That's pretty dirty. You know, I feel like there's so much that you can get away with flirting with other people just by sending food pics. You know, like when I was getting whisk pics, it felt so salacious when someone would slide into my DMs with a big fat whisk. And I get that same feeling, like texting food to anyone. I'm like, this feels like I kind of just want to show you this dish that I'm really proud of, but it feels flirty.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What's the cross section like? Did you do any vegetable in there, like a wilted? Nothing.
Nope.
So it's just
No
meat,
veg.
cheese, sauce.
Yeah, the sauce was just like a really classic tomato paste, crushed tomatoes, and whole peeled tomatoes that I mushed up into it with onion, garlic, and the two types of meat. Very simple, salt and pepper. And then the layering was just that with noodles, and then 4 stacks of sauce and the ricotta, mozzarella, Parmesan mixture, noodles 4 times. And then the top was covered with mozzarella and parm. The whole thing was very satisfying, I have to say. And I made a really lovely, simple green salad to go along with it with chiffonaded basil and scallions and 2 kinds of greens and a homemade balsamic dressing. I felt like, yeah, like you said, it was like a hug from the inside.
Yeah.
Comfort food.
Comfort food. The hug from the inside. God damn. What up, Mary Jane?
How's it going, Mike?
So good. Welcome to Weed and Grub, everyone. How are you?
I am excited to talk to you about lasagna.
Okay. Well, this is a podcast about lasagna and comedy.
And cannabis.
And culture.
And cooking.
And calling shit out. And kind of more calling shit out today.
Calling shit out, yeah.
Super calling shit out, squared. Yeah.
Calling shit out, calling it what it is with our fantastic guest.
Andrew T is amazing. So excited for this episode. I have one more lasagna question before we move on for you, though. How do you feel about cold lasagna?
It's the greatest.
It is,
I don't
right?
like hot food. Yeah.
I know, but you keep waffling on that, waffle frying on that.
The satisfaction that I get when I pull the hot dish out of the oven and it is in its perfect glory, like hot and bubbly, is, it cannot be denied. But I love that mouthful from the fridge that's also, kind of gelatinous. I'm a weirdo, what can I say? I just like all different temps, but I like that sort of solid lasagna bite when it's sort of like all stuck together and cold.
Yes, there's that weird fat separation from the meat that happens in the cold corners of the lasagna pan. That jelly is kind of my favorite bite. I haven't thought about that in forever. I'm so glad you brought up the gelatinous nature of a cold lasagna.
I would straight up, if I were a caterer, which I don't think anyone would ever want me to be because I would just serve weird snacks, but I would love...
here's an onion with a raisin stuffed in it.
Here's my favorite sandwich, which is actually mustard with, as you say, onions. I love a mustard and onion sandwich. No, I would serve delicious snacks. I make a fantastic deviled egg. Listen, I would be great at it, but I would definitely try and get people to eat things that they didn't think of as, especially finger foods, like, when the canapes get passed. I would say that a little square cube of cold lasagna on a toothpick would go over fucking gangbusters.
Yeah, it would.
Definitely at a weed party. I mean, that would be like a great way to get started. Lasagna cubes?
Yeah, at a weed party. Yeah, the amuse-bouche is the gelatinous corner of a lasagna cube. That's amazing. You make me think about when Ann Burrell yelled at me on Worst Cooks. We were doing a grilled cheese challenge outside, and it was a disaster because we were on a farm and we're using a hot plate to make a grilled cheese. So it's never getting hot enough. The wind is blowing everywhere. Hay is getting in our sandwich and in our eyes. But I made the grilled cheese, and when the cheese melted out onto the skillet, there was those crispy bits of cheese. And so when I cut the sandwich into triangles, I put one of the crispy bits on top of the sandwich as a heightened garnish. And Ann Burrell blasted me for it and was like, that wasn't the directions. That wasn't what we said to do. If you want to be here, you got to treat this seriously. It's all about discipline. Da, 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 da. And she was like, why did you do that? And I was like, because the crispy bit on the pan is better than the actual grilled cheese. And she was like, nah, 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 and yelled at me. And then cameras cut and she leans in and she was like, great call. That's the absolute best bit in the world.
No.
So tasty. Because, you got to do it for the drama and for the cut. And I understood that and we had fun about it. But yeah, she was like, 100%. So a crispy cheese, maybe as the second amuse-bouche, a lasagna cube and some crispy cheese. Just
absolutely. I mean, that's really what a Parmesan crisp is, right? Is just that little waffly thin cheese bit. You talking about that makes me think that I would love to be a fly on the wall for Top Chef filming. Just how do they go in on those people? Because those are true chefs at the top of their game. I mean, many of them on this season that you and I are kind of watching together, the Portland season, are James Beard nominated or even award-winning chefs.
Yeah.
And so how do you go in on someone who's, it's just, I'm kind of interested, how much drama are they cutting out or capturing and then choosing to leave out?
I think it's interesting because I've seen every single season. I'm such a fan. And I think that Colicchio and then Padma to an extent, I think he might have fought for the integrity of that show. Because
it's a no drama show,
yeah,
right?
It used to be high key drama. I remember whoopsie daisies and dun dun duns and
remember when Alon, they all fucking held Marcel down, didn't they shave Marcel's head? That was
something
a
crazy
whole fucking
that.
storyline.
Yeah. And then at a certain point they were like, yo, let these motherfuckers cook. They're cooks. Let them cook.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest drama that I've seen on this season was when that chef elected not to come back because he was hurt and it was like that was kind of a more, a bit of a story.
Yeah, and he was over
Yeah.
it anyway. He wasn't enjoying himself. I don't think he wanted.
No, he
to be
was
there
ready to
anymore.
go.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
whatever.
I get that. I want to go home. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Do you want to get to some news this week?
I do want to get to some news. Before we get to the news, though, I do want to say that because we're working on this book proposal right now, I would love to come up with a canapé section. I'm just putting it out in the air on this podcast
Absolutely.
right now.
I love
We gotta
it.
have some past foods, past the joint and past the food section of canapés and cannabis. Canapés, hey, no, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, sorry. Fucking hell. Like nobody's ever fucking thought of that before.
Nobody's committed as hard and then immediately retracted it as hard as you.
I hated it so much. I hated it. I'm walking that all the way back. Okay. Grub Gazette. Here we go.
Oh, shit. The Grub Gazette is presented by OCB Rolling Papers, the largest rolling paper brand in the world, crafted naturally since 1918.
OCB offers a full line of plant-to-puff papers made with sustainable fibers farmed from within a 500-kilometer radius of their facility in France, which is powered by 100% green energy.
In 2020, OCB rolled out America's first ultra-thin, slow-burning bamboo rolling papers and cones. They're even burning, no-tear, GMO-free, and vegan.
Not all rolling papers are created equal. OCB offers a premium smoking experience that we call Harmony on High.
Ask for OCB wherever you buy your papers and sample their entire line of products. Plus, visit OCBUSA.com and follow OCB on Instagram at OCB_USA.
Thank you, OCB, for supporting our show. And if you dig weed and grub, please check out OCB.
Yeah, support them because that supports us.
Yay!
What's our story this week, Mary Jane?
The Grub Gazette this week is that New York has banned Delta 8 THC.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild time for Delta 8 because, it's sourced from hemp. And so it's under the 2018 Farm Bill, which legalized hemp for sale across the country. Anything sourced from hemp was also thought to be legal. So Delta 8 has become a really popular alternative to Delta 9 THC because it does produce a similar, although not exactly alike, but a similar sense of euphoria to like that classic THC high. And several states have banned it. There are 12 states, I think, now total that have banned it, and New York just joined the list. So this is being reported from mjbizdaily.com. And it just says that the Delta 8 THC ban was issued by the state health department this week in an updated batch of hemp regulations that cover any THC isomers derived from hemp.
I only have tried Delta 8 once, and I tried it on this podcast, and we talked about it. And the Delta 8 that I tried, I really didn't like. So I don't want to say that that's all Delta 8, just like it's not all weed. Like maybe there's one that would work for me. The part for me that is not a red flag, but something to at least keep an eye on, is that as cannabis comes online and becomes federal, they are immediately squashing out anything that they're not interested in being a part of. And so I think that like that for me is the problematic part, is like everything was no, and now that we're yes on this, we're no on everything else.
Right. Well, I think it makes sense, that regulations are tightening because, New York State just legalized cannabis. So, yeah, it makes sense that they would just take a look at everything and start laying down the rules. And I think it's, it's something that I'd like to do a deeper dive into and learn more about why exactly all of these states have made the decision to ban Delta 8, because I'm seeing all of these Delta 8 companies crop up right now. So many of them are even just launching right now. Like I'm getting press releases all the time for like new Delta 8, legal for sale everywhere. So it's pretty interesting. I am going to learn more about it and come back to you with it.
Okay. I had a couple opinions on it off jump, and I was also put in my place a little bit, so I may as well go on record about it. But I was joking on Twitter about how Delta 8 is like the knockoff Halloween costume, where it's like you can either get Beetlejuice, which would be weed, or you can get the one that says Juice Demon, and that's Delta 8 to me. And I don't know, I thought it was a pretty funny tweet. It had good traction, but then somebody came and they were like, hey, weed's illegal in my state. Delta 8 is my only option, and so I'm going to ride with it until my state gets its act together. And that was a nice reminder, as easy as it is to make fun of, and I still stand by the joke. I think it was very funny, but I also wanted to be conscientious, and I appreciated them like replying on that and saying like, yo, but also this.
Definitely. Like it doesn't serve us to be purists. You know what I mean? Like I am not here to be dictating to anyone else what their intake of anything should be. And if that's what's available to you and that's what you're choosing to unwind with or medicate with, then that's great. I want to learn more about why these states are choosing to come down on it so hard that they're saying that it's entirely illegal. It's not even that they're regulating it for sale, they are banning it.
Right.
So,
and also it wasn't that good of a joke. I deleted it. I just wanted to also walk my way back. You got to walk back, I get to walk back. Okay.
Well, before we get to our amazing guest, Andrew T., should we do our Buds of the Week?
Yeah, let's do Buds of the Week.
Can I do my Bud of the Week first?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to shout out Mary Jane Runway, at Mary Jane Runway on IG. Lisa, the brains and designer behind Mary Jane Runway, has been a friend since I moved to LA. She's just a wonderful person, and she has made all of the weed leaf things that I wear, the kimono that I love so much, that's this beautiful flowy robe that's patterned with pot leaves, and then the sequin jacket, I think, is the one that everyone always wants to know about anytime I wear it out or I post a picture of me in it. It's just an incredible custom bomber that's sparkly sequins. So follow at Mary Jane Runway on IG to see all of her beautiful designs. And yeah, Lisa's just an all-around beautiful human.
That's awesome. My vote of the week this week is Jay Walker, at JAYWALKR, Jay Walker. And I did a Facebook series with him called ASS, Airport Security Squad, and we hit it off. He's so talented. And he is on a new show on Stars called Run the World. I can't wait to watch it. So if you're looking for something new, check out Run the World on Stars. Support the homie Jay. Here he is with his shirt off, Mary Jane.
Oh, okay. All right. Where does he live now? Whew, the temperature went up in here by like 3 degrees. Okay.
Yeah, little lasagna red.
Ooh, yeah.
So that's my Bud of the Week.
Everybody follow. Everybody follow Jay.
You want to get to our VIB, our very important bud?
Andrew T. Yes, I do.
Andrew T. Such a smart, kind, cool human being. And Yo, Is This Racist is an amazing podcast that he and Tawny do together.
Everyone should be listening to Yo, Is This Racist? Go subscribe right now and do yourself a big fucking favor.
Yeah. That's it, right?
That's kind of it. I mean, we just had such a great conversation. Like, it took some interesting twists and turns. We talked a lot about a bunch of stuff that I didn't think we'd talk about. It was really, really cool. And he's just fucking awesome. And follow him on Twitter. He's at Andrew T, which is TI. He's a do not miss on Twitter.
And he doesn't miss.
He doesn't.
You want to get to it?
Yes, please.
Without further ado, here is our interview with
Andrew T.
You speak like somebody who wrote about starting therapy in their 40s for Esquire.
Yeah, I did not realize. Here's the thing: I did not read between or ask any questions of the good folks at Esquire. I don't think that piece is going to come out widely online at all, and I just assumed it would actually. So I haven't really promoted it, but yeah, I got to write a little thing about starting therapy late in life. It was like a personal essay. It was like 1,000 words. It was like some shit you would write in college. It was like a 1,000-ish word personal essay that, like, when I went to go look at it, it was like Hemingway's written for Esquire, and I was like, oh, it's like that kind of shit. Like, it's real.
Wow.
It's a big deal, man.
And in print.
So it's basically print only. Print and online archive only. Yeah, and I don't think I've ever had anything published in print before. But yeah, so the therapist I go to now is a teletherapist, and a thing that I didn't really find place to talk about in the Esquire piece, partially because it felt a tiny bit icky, is that I was having a lot of trouble actually finding a therapist in like November of last year. And that was like sort of like I'm really fucked up I need help time. But and I didn't look as hard as I humanly could have. And there's a bit of snobbery that I was like, well, I probably shouldn't go to a sliding scale place because like I'm making enough money to like, and I have like the Writers Guild insurance like covers therapy very well. So I was like, I should go to a quote unquote good one. That's bad.
A Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
A Maserati therapy.
It truly is exactly my train of thought. It's not good that I had it, but it's what happened in my brain. But so like it was actually impossible to find a therapist like that who was taking new clients. And this is the kind of icky SpawnCon part of it, is BetterHelp started sponsoring Yo, Is This Racist? So we got like free time to do therapy, and it was really, and I but then I've heard like so many people who are much more experienced with therapy, it's like BetterHelp's not good for this and that reason. So but I really like the experience. And again, this is the like I have nothing to compare it to of it, which is like I don't fucking know. And then my thought, and this might be incorrect, and I hope I'm not saying this to y'all before I'm saying it to my actual therapist, but part of me is thinking that, like, at least for someone who is, like, so unpracticed with any type of self-reflection, I think it wouldn't matter because to me, I suspect, I don't know, listeners, tweet at me and tell me why this is wrong. But, like, I truly do think it's that, like, 20 minutes before therapy when I'm like, the fuck am I what do I want to talk about in therapy today? That is actually the thing that is the thing that I know I have very few, I'm unpracticed at even doing that. So to me, that is so valuable that I don't think it would matter. Like I legitimately think like an actual psychic would be, or sorry, an actual fake psychic. You get what I'm saying. Not a magic person, but like basically someone who like just anyone who I was paying to listen to my what I'm thinking about would be almost identical. I don't know if that's true. I'm sure that's ignorant in many ways, but yeah.
It's like the preparing of the meal is as meaningful as the eating of the meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the carving out that time and thinking about what you're going to say is as important as the time in which you're saying it to a person.
I think there's a world where it might be more for me.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know. And I'm sure that's fucked up in some way or another.
I think it's cool because I only really know you through like Twitter snippets, and we've met each other once or twice out in the real world. Like,
yeah.
Just even listening to Yo, Is This Racist isn't going to be the same as having you on here, but just even the way that you choose your words perfectly and then backtrack forwards to come forward with a more truthful way to say what you're saying it's cool. Like it's cool. It's a cool way to get to know you a bit.
It's kind of an edit. Yeah. But I think that's what I do in therapy, which is like talk. Wait, no, that's messed up. Let me try that again.
I also wonder if it's like, because you're an artist who takes the world and the things that you feel and see about the world and put them into projects or scripts or things that allow you to get out what is inside you in a way that you're really happy with, or at least gets it out. Like, I wonder if that also plays into the idea of therapy being a place for you to just babble a bit and see where it all goes because you're taking care of yourself in all of these other areas.
I think that may, well, so the other thing, and this is, which is that, like, I don't know, so I've only, as far as, like, narrative, that's not true now, but, so Mixed Dish was my first, like, really, like, I'd written for Robot Chicken, and I'd written, like, sketch stuff, and I did a Yo, Is This Racist pilot, but, like, the first, like, kind of, like, real narrative, like, job I'd had. And there is that very so I'm about to say something that is common on some level to every writer's room, but I was told, and I believe it, but I guess I don't know for sure, that like the Kenya Barris camp is more this than others, which is like very confessional, very like personal story driven. Like everything can comes back. Almost everything on the screen kind of, happened in some way on Mixed-ish and apparently on Black-ish to like somebody in the room. So it also kind of like probably, I wonder if I would have been a better, just a better like writer there too. That was maybe the nascent beginnings of like this, like, all right, let's just fucking like lay it all out. And like I'm like working on something right now that is significantly more autobiographical, and with a friend of mine who is we don't know each other that well outside of this project actually, but like there is a lot of like I'm getting a lot better at being like, this is the personal story that makes this thing, this is how I sort of like make my case for why this character should do this, and sort of vice versa. And then also bringing up, I'm now like better at being like, hey, this thing that happened to the two of us, that you did this thing, I did this thing, this is the dynamic that we want. So I do think actually like I would have been a better writer with at least just practice at this stuff. It is also funny too, like what I thought being in a writer's room would be like. I do think, and I think this is like, it is closer to like the Robot Chicken room, which is like, obviously in Robot Chicken, no one gives a shit about anyone's feelings. Because that's not what the show is. It's not about feelings. Not because they're bad people. But
it's about Doogie Howser becoming a robot who beats up Voltron.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's no need for that stuff, so that's not that kind of writer's room. But I really liked being like, right, let's, even in comedy, like, what are all the emotions here? Like, why is, what's a real emotion? What's a real, like, way for this person to justify doing these things that will be dumb? And then, hopefully it's funny.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your evolution as a writer. I mean, I know that you've been in LA for a while and you've worked on so many things, but what was how do you track leaving the Midwest and coming to LA?
Gosh. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is like pretty long. So, I have, or it's not long, but it's, so I didn't start even like trying to be a writer until I was like 32, 33. It's like one of those things where it's so like, this feels a little bit like the way like in the early 2000s, every one of those like Asian chefs had like the exact same backstory. It's like, everyone laughed at me when I brought noodles in a thermos, but now they want to eat my dumplings. And then I discovered Wu-Tang Clan when I was 15 years old, and I was like, there's a different way to be. And I was like, fucking all of you have this exact same backstory. Like, give me a fucking break. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but like it got less interesting every time I heard it. So I'm going to tell this story that I think, you've heard before, and every time you hear it subsequent to this, it's going to be less interesting. But like, so I'm like Chinese American. I was born in Ann Arbor. Needless to say, never growing up knew anyone who wrote for television or was a comedian. Like I didn't see myself represented or see, like even like Margaret Cho, who was sort of like on, I believe like All American Girl was on, like, I don't know, at some point. It was just like, to me, very Korean, and it was like still not me. But so it is one of those things where like, I was like, oh, I could never do that. I moved to New York. I went to school at Columbia, stayed in New York. Became friends with lots of stand-ups, I guess partially because of just the people I knew, and I was working at Comedy Central as like a digital media producer at the time, when it like was not cool to be a digital media producer. Not that it's that cool now, but truly it was like less than no respect like in the company, and just kind of like slowly worked my way up largely through attrition. I think I was a pretty bad employee / no, I was a very bad employee, but I was like smart enough to mostly get shit done on time, and like whatever, you fire enough people or people leave and eventually you have an okay job. So Comedy Central moved me out to LA. yeah, I was just kind of like, I guess I'll just be the funniest, person who's basically ultimately responsible for writing HTML like at least 2 or 3 times a week. That kind of thing. It was like, the funniest, essentially computer programmer, project manager kind of person. And then I, just like through like drinking in Echo Park and meeting people, it was like, oh, you motherfuckers are comedy writers. And specifically, I guess I won't name him, but I met like, the hot Asian writer at the time. And, it was just one of those, I was like, okay, if this asshole can literally be like the best that we got, not saying he's even bad, but I was like, I got a place. I can do this.
Yeah.
And then right around then I started Yo's This Racist, the blog, because this is the whole industry. My only experiences with Comedy Central, but it is literally the whole industry. So I was working for the network, and like so often I was the only person of color in like most rooms. So like anytime like the question, is this racist, came up, like people would either ask me explicitly or you just kind of like feel the eyeballs on you. And it's like, yeah, obviously it's racist. And, also like it's not ideal that I'm the spokesperson for every non-white person so often. Like just, and it's not like only Comedy Central, and it's not like 100%. There were obviously other people of color there, but just not as much.
I was in a writer's room that I will not talk about, but there was one female writer in there who was also Asian. And so anything that came up, every dude just looked over to them and was like, hey, let's dial this in. And that was a crazy experience.
Yeah. And that's like, relatively speaking, for a lot of writers' rooms, a quote unquote good / responsible, not like a good experience, but like for the male showrunners, I'm sure it's like gotta check in, let's be responsible, like it's like even the like doing good version of it is still pretty shitty for the actual personnel involved, and like it's the tokenism of it, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so I started Yo's This Racist because I was like, if you asked some fucking stranger, it's racist. What's wrong with you? Yeah, and then that got me a manager, and then it became a podcast, and then I sort of concurrently sold a feature pitch, and I was very lucky to be hired to write it. Knowing what I know now, I dare I say it was a little irresponsible of the producers. And so I wrote a movie for a very famous Asian director that is not likely to be made anytime soon. But I got to write it, and I got to join the guild, and yeah.
It's so interesting. And I'd love to dive into Yo's This Racist. Like how you developed it from a blog into a podcast, how you brought Tawny in.
Oh, yeah.
Like what precipitated the hotline? I have so many questions.
Oh, well, that was from the jump. Yeah, it was, that was also, the way I'm going to describe it too is like, it's just, I think I got thrown in. And I think it was a little bit because I'd was like a little older, not a little older, like a lot older for like starting out in like, I was in like I was 32, something like that. Like, so like that's old to like start. And I think there was a little bit of a perception that I knew more what I was doing, or, that like that whole time in my 20s, I'd been practicing something. Anyway, I don't fucking know, but they were just like, yeah, Earwolf was like kind of looking to diversify their podcast at the time. So they were like, you want a show? And I was like, yeah, well, it could be this. And because the blog was Q&A, I was like, okay, well, it'll just always have a voicemail box, and people will call in, ask their questions, and we can riff. And initially it was like 5 mini episodes per week. So like 10, record for approximately an hour and like do a little intro outro, and like yeah, so like really like just short episodes, and that was an okay format. And then it kind of in an effort to like make it a little more listenable, kind of became closer to the format. I don't remember when Tawny came on, but someone at Earwolf essentially was like, hey, what do you think about having a co-host? And Tawny Newsome, my co-host, and I think when the co-host idea came up, I was like, it probably should be a Black woman. Definitely one of the things that has been unfortunate but understandable, but maybe not even that unfortunate, is like people really, not all people, but there is kind of like a little bit of friction with an Asian person talking about racism at all from time to time. So there, you know, and it definitely was exacerbated by like when I first started the blog, I was like totally anonymous. So like it was just like people often assumed I was Black because why else would you talk about race? There also is the association with the word yo with Blackness, which I get. I don't totally buy, but I get. Yeah, so I really was like, it really ought to be a Black woman. And Tawny, I think, had recently been a guest. And so somehow it was floated to her. And then she agreed to do it. I'm very lucky because of that. And then, yeah, we kind of like, we're at Earwolf for a few years. And then we left Earwolf at the beginning of 2021 or end of 2020. I don't remember exactly when. Earwolf had been like purchased by like Scripps and then Sirius, and we're a, you know, okay sized show, but we're not like The Office Ladies or Conan O'Brien or something like that. Like we're not hosted by a household name, I guess. And so sort of understandably, it's like hard for people like the sales team to like really give a shit. Because why would they? Like it's just like for approximately the same amount of work, you probably make your like quota by like selling one ad on Conan O'Brien or whatever. So so that was like one of those things that was like just like, you know, a little like hard to figure out. And then also like we were sort of a weird fit creatively because, you know, obviously like such a white network. Not in a bad. This all feels like bad. Like it's not like meant as an indictment, but it's just sort of the comedy community, like writ large.
Improvisers.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like not any different than like, you know, it's sort of an offshoot of UCB in many ways. Earwolf is and was, and like it's reflected in that population. You know. Mm-hmm. It's probably slightly more diverse than UCB, actually.
So you're independent now.
Yeah.
Just are you guys doing it on your own? Do you have like how did that go for you? How is it working out? Does it feel great?
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, certainly the other part where it's just like it was like I was still in the mixed-ish season when much of the heavy work for going independent happened. So I do feel like a big debt of like, I didn't do enough work. I didn't do enough work to help. But we basically, it's like very similar to Patreon. It isn't. We use a different site and set of partners to get like our ads and for people to subscribe to. And this is how terrible my brain is. I'm actually going to open my email so I don't say the name of the company wrong.
And it'll also be in our show notes and in description. So always click on that and support Yo, Is This Racist?
Oh, yeah. Oh, so yeah. Our thing is called Suboptimal Pods. But we use a site called Gumball, which is like the headgum, I think, like ad people. And then, oh, God. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to just send a link later. I don't remember what the subscription thing is, and I will fuck it up if I try to guess.
We'll put links in the notes.
And Twitter's gonna come for you, and you're gonna be canceled. And I'm so sorry, but thank you for this.
I've been waiting to get to your Twitter feed because it's just so much fun to follow you and see all of the ways that you express indignation, rage, injustice, and you're so fucking funny, and it's so great. And I think one of the main things that you've been tweeting about lately that I'd really like to know about, because I lived in New York for a really long time, but I moved. I moved to LA just a few years ago, so I'm not in touch with the mayoral politics there right now, but you hate Andrew Yang.
Yeah, I'm not in touch with the mayoral politics. So I have to say, I hate Andrew Yang. There's a real chance he still is the best option. I just don't know. I suspect he isn't because he fucking sucks, but like, I don't know. I know that mayor's races are dirty and mayoral candidates are horrible people. So like, is he more horrible than the average, Cuomo type? Is it Cuomo? I don't even know. I don't know enough about
De Blasio, right?
De Blasio. Yeah. Okay, right. Fine. Cuomo's good. But is he worse than the average like person who wants to be mayor of New York? Like, I don't know. Probably, possibly not. But yeah, Andrew Yang specifically really like got under my skin. I think early. I will say I think I identified that he fucking sucked before a lot of other people. And the thing that got me was like, because, I just had this vague sense of like, oh, cool, it's nice that there's an Asian person out there making some kind of headway. And then I think I, heard like, oh, he's proposing universal basic income. Well, that's amazingly progressive. This was before like, possibly before he'd released the fine print of it, but before I'd read it for sure. By the way, for any Yang heads out there, the fine print is basically like, instead of we'll do universal basic income, but like every other social service will be cut. It's like literally like Ross Perot's flat tax of like social services. It's just a scam to give to have the government do less. So even his best thing is like stolen from other people, and he made it the worst net negative possible version of it. But he came on my radar because, he'd been on my radar, but he came to my, like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy radar? Because he tweeted something to the effect of, like, I'm proud to have, because at the time his polling was like kind of like edgelords and like a significant number of Trump supporters. Yeah. And he was like, I'm really proud to have all these Trump voters like supporting me, like, and all this like humanity bullshit.
Some would call that part of the game. Some would call that part of building enough of a base no matter what to reach your goals.
Like whatever it takes, I guess. But it was just like what the fuck are you talking about? Like, and this wasn't like a time when it was like ambiguous what Trump supporter, I'm a person who since I was a kid was like every Republican is a fucking scumbag. Like, I've been told many times, you can't say that. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, it was like, like no Republican since I've been alive, like fucking Ronald Reagan. Like, what do you, like, if you voted for Reagan, you're also a racist, or white supremacist, whatever. Yeah, it was like he tweeted that and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I did not realize, because of Asian Twitter enough. I was like, at least Twitter friends with a couple people who were like deeply involved with his campaign, which I probably should have realized. So they got really offended. That became a fight, and it's like, as you hear more from Andrew Yang, it is like just, I won't be able to give proper credit for this on Twitter, but like, it was something I read on Twitter, and I just don't know who it is. But so the one of the most apt descriptions of Andrew Yang I've ever read is like, he's like the Asian kid with like all white friends like in elementary school who's like, when they're like, you're the ninja, he's like, yeah, I am the ninja, and like we'll do the hi-ya and just like really lean into like white supremacy, basically. That's where all the shit with like, he's like math, like all this model minority shit, he like leans in so hard to the model minority stereotype. I'm Asian, so I know doctors is like a line he said. And like, I don't know, if you want to be like some kind of civil rights leader-ish or like a public person of color, like, how are you going to not understand that like model minority stuff is just a cudgel white people invented to like beat down black people, basically, black people and Latinos. It's like leaning into like those things are deeply anti-black. The fact that he doesn't seem to realize that is bad. And then, every one of his policies as they came out and was like, oh, you fucking suck. To the extent that he was like, during the presidential election, he was like, well, I'm really for like qualified immigrants, or like, immigrants that add value. The humanity stuff. Every time he says humanity, he's only basically trying to protect and talk about white supremacists. He doesn't have the same empathy for when like, Black Lives Matter concerns come up or anything like that. For some reason, his empathy only goes off when it's like racists. Shane Gillis, Shane Gillis, the fucking racist fuckhead who was like briefly hired at SNL. When he got fired, Andrew Yang was like, I don't think he should be fired for that. Like, those are just racist jokes he said on a podcast. I'm paraphrasing now. But it's like, hey, you dumb fuck. Like, you think Shane Gillis shouldn't be fired for all his like Asian jokes, many of them directed at you, but like, are you like too stupid to understand that like, for instance, like Bowen Yang, the first Asian cast member in forever, like is going to have to be coworkers with this guy? Do you think Bowen should have to go through that? Like, it's just like this like humanity thing. His empathy only goes off for bigots, and it's like. That doesn't make you a bigger person. That makes you a fucking bootlicker, you idiot. Sorry, you guys are very nicely allowing me to soapbox, but I think that's all my Andrew Yang shit.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to hear you just lay it out that cleanly and clearly, to understand that being an apologist or someone who is understanding of multiple points of view can actually be a fucking terrible thing.
Right.
More often than not.
Well, it's just, but that is the thing. It's like he sells himself as someone who understands multiple points of view, but he doesn't. He only sympathizes with like, we'll call them the racists, but it's like the bigots of all stripes,
Right.
Like he's just like, and I think that is like, sort of that, like he's essentially like a white liberal tech bro. He just happens to be Asian, he went to fucking prep school. He's like a Silicon Valley dude. He like, and that's why it's the same way like the New York Times is like endlessly fascinated with racists, in their editorial board and everything. It's like, oh, we talk to people in a diner. It's like, okay, but how often you don't give that same deference to the actual victims in our society or people for whom, our society is routinely violent against, there's not like the same number of like interviews with like unhoused folks or like black people who have been the victims of police violence. Like why are you so endlessly fascinated? And it's because like they live in a quasi-liberal bubble. It's like these like liberal racists, but they're like, how could anyone be a fucking bigot like that? Oh my God, that's so interesting. And it's like,
because one of them makes you feel better about yourself and the other one makes you aware.
Yeah, how bad, world. Right? Like what you're complicit in. Yeah, right. It is like, and it is also just like, it's like, you people, like I have a classmate from college who's like, deep in the New York Times family, and like realizing that you're like an Upper East Side rich kid or wherever the fuck rich kid he was from. It's like, oh, right. I'm from goddamn Michigan. Like, it's very evident, like, racists are not interesting and they're everywhere. And, like, if you're actually in that type of, like, class, like, liberal class bubble, you actually don't know those people and they're interesting. And then those people unfortunately get a chance to amplify that and, like, really, like, create this, like, salience and this, like, big, like, oh, Trump supporters are misunderstood. It's like, they're not. I'm sorry, they're not. They're like very, very easy to understand.
I was just reading about something that you'd written. Someone said, you're making me feel bad about being white. Is that racist? And you were like, I don't know how to help you if there isn't enough in the world to make you feel good about being white. Like, what the fuck? It was great.
Oh, man. Yeah. Right, it also is like I mean, it's that thing that's why, especially the blog of Yo's This Racist works, because that was also much like shorter, and like people would level this at me as a criticism, but I would just be like, it's not a criticism. This is like the whole secret of it, which is like, it's so inflammatory. You're like cheapening the word racist. I mean, yeah, it should be inflammatory. The reason it's inflammatory is because it's like, our racism is cheap because the supply is very high. Like, it ought to be cheap. And, like, you thinking that it has to be reserved for people burning crosses or whatever are the problem, in my opinion.
Yeah. Is this also why you don't like stand-up comedy? Is because there's it's almost like white, rich Republican comedy is stand-up comedy to a lot of the country.
I feel, it is that, like, and I'm speaking in absolutes that are unfair here, but
I do it all the time, and then I apologize.
But I think for me, the thing with stand-up is that it's like, the faux objectivity of funny is funny. Like, people who say funny is funny are not. Like it is always subjective. Like, it is like this idea that, like, you think that, like, you know, the main comedy club in, like, you know, fucking Lincoln, Nebraska, and the fucking, you know, the store are, like, encompass all the range of humanity. And it's like, yeah, you know, there's a lot more comedy out there, and one of the reasons it's mostly out there and not in here, in these types of places, is because, like, these environments, like, keep people out. They, like, keep points of view out. So, and not, like, utterly, but, like, you know, you still have to center, like, this particular type of, like, center to far right viewpoint of, like, what comedy is. And, like, because it's, like, the same way that, like, you know, those folks, like, they're like, well, this kills in wherever. And it's like, yeah, because that's your self-selecting audience. And, like, I'm just saying, like, it's always taste, and there is nothing universal. And these people are like, but that stand-up comedy is, like, pretends to hold objectivity, but isn't. Like, they're, you know, it's just one group of, like, again, center to far right, like, comedy, that is, like, the main, like, quote unquote stand-up comedy. And then the other part of it that I really don't like is, like, the way it is, like, to me, like, akin to, the closest thing I see to it is, like, honestly, like, the police. Like, the like, brotherhood, because it is mostly a brotherhood of, like, the brick wall or the stool and the mic stand is, like, for some reason, a reason that I've done a little bit of stand-up comedy, but I don't understand why, you know, it's so tied to, like, well, at least they're getting out there and saying it, and that's more important than anything else. I mean, I think the ugliest version of this is, like, I guess I didn't even realize they were dating when this came out, but, like, you know, Michelle Wolf did, like, shows with Louis C.K. during the pandemic. And thus I was like, what the fuck do you actually believe, Michelle Wolf? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, as in, like, and you see this so often. It's like, you know, just honestly, the green room at any comedy club. I'm like, so this, like, truth telling you allegedly were doing on stage doesn't matter when this, like, person with repellent views is next to you who has, like, you know, it's the same way, like, everyone will kind of consider going on Joe Rogan, even though he is just, like, you know, like, a far right person who, like, smokes weed. Like, it's just, like, to me, I don't understand how the brotherhood is more important than the actual words. And to many, like, career stand-up comics, it feels like the brotherhood, that is their calculus. You know, never criticize a comic. That's, like, the same as, like, every cop's a good cop. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't understand. I mean, yeah, and but I'm easy for me to say because I have no love. I derive no, like, value or joy from doing stand-up comedy.
I do think, though, when we first met at that show, I think your set was about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And mine was about how I don't like that my tummy jiggles. So, you know, there's also room for that kind of comedy on stage as well.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Totally. And it is like, I have enjoyed stand-up and I like stand-ups, but I don't like stand-up. It's just like, I just think the culture of it holds, like, again, and it's lucky for me because it's, like, so little value to me personally. But I'm also lucky that I'm, like, able to write and, like, you know, have a podcast and do other stuff. So If that weren't the case, I don't know. Things might be different, I suppose. But so it's one of those like easy for me to say. It's sort of similar to like on Yo, Is This Racist when I'm like, just tell your racist parents to fuck off. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, fucking easy for me to say. I know there's a lot of other shit that goes on. So
something I was talking to Mary Jane about yesterday that I'm kind of sensitive to right now is, do you know Katie Porter? If I mention Katie Porter, she has the whiteboards.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Rep Katie
So,
Porter.
like,
Yeah.
Katie,
so I was
I'm
thinking of a comedian. I was like,
Yeah.
what? But yes. The Congress woman.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I jump around a lot because my brain is a kaleidoscope.
No, that's all right.
Like, I'm really sensitive right now to people like her who I think are doing great work to try and make the world a better place, and how quickly comedy takes her whiteboard and photoshops it into like Shrek having sex, or like takes whatever is trying to create real positive change in the world, and immediately comedy comes for that, gobbles it up, and then spits out viral content that makes everybody laugh. And quite frankly, a lot of them are very creative, and I get jealous sometimes because I can't think that way. But it also completely dilutes the effort being put into making the world good. And so I'm really struggling right now because I feel like we're at such a fucking important point in our country.
It's a serious time, right? Like, so many of the people who are changing the world or doing any good are very fucking serious about it. And like, you know, in any realm, I mean, in the weed world, in the war on drugs, or in politics, or any activists, they have to be serious, so they're taken seriously. So where is the room for the artists and the funny people to do their jobs? It's just, and then, you know, you hear about like people like fucking Joe Rogan saying he's not able to do his job because he's, you know, being told that he can't say whatever he wants to. Like, the whole thing is just so fraught at the moment.
I don't ascribe the same importance to comedy that I think a lot of the most bozo stand-ups do. You know, it's the way like Pryor changed the world. You know, Carlin like shook up the all thinking, and it's like, I mean, you know, they did a thing and they pointed out some things and they have the point of view, but like, I think it's like giving like big social change. And you see it on Twitter actually in this way, which is like, it isn't actually the joke or the satire that's really gonna ring that bell and really make it happen. It's just like, no, they're all parts of a point of view, but like when you need to say something, it's always better to simply say it. And like say it with humor, maybe, if that's the way you talk. Not that it's even remotely the same, but like, you know, the power people ascribe to like Stephen Colbert and like Jon Stewart back in the day. It's like, I mean, I think that has been laid fairly bare at this point, but it's like, yeah, that was like weak, actually. It was weak and like pacifying and like, you know, did not help.
Right, because you could just be
Possibly
outraged
hurt.
at home in your armchair and feel like you did something because you were mad along with them, but that didn't make you do anything better.
Yeah, and they also weren't that mad. Like
Right.
they didn't like it was just that like, ooh, the hypocrisy of it. And like, you know, Colbert was one of those. That was when I was working at Comedy Central, and I was like, this will never work as a parody of Bill O'Reilly because he can't be as fucking racist as Bill O'Reilly. Like, it's just like a bit, but it's like a buffoon. It doesn't actually, the punch is pulled because you cannot do the satire of what an actual repellent human being he is. You know, so you turn Bill O'Reilly, like true white supremacist, like angry, horrible person Bill O'Reilly, into just like, I have a big ego and I'm right wing. Like, that's weak. That's not strong. That's like, it does the opposite of helping, in my opinion. I guess I'm just like, but yeah, comedy does things. It points out things. It gives you ways to look, you know, points of view, and you can chuckle and like come together about certain things. But like, you know, it isn't the driver of social change. And I think that's like, that was what the boomer generation thought. They thought their fucking like heroes were the drivers of social change. And I think that's just not borne out by the facts. But even if those guys were, our guys are not. Our people are not, I suppose. We're a little more diverse than they were.
Yeah.
I think comedy is like a wonderful amplifier or an intensifier, but it isn't the thing. And like all media, and I'm not saying it's not immensely powerful, blah blah blah, of course, but like it's like treating these folks as like gods is like sort of like, and also gods across every domain. I mean, I think one thing about like, you know, stand up too is like, what should be happening is it lays bare that people are very compartmentalized in their thinking processes. Like the way like Dave Chappelle can be amazing on race when it comes to black people and really, you know, just like no better than any right-wing comic on trans people is like, it, you know, I do think like the trans stuff from Dave Chappelle like diminishes him in my eye, but that's partially because I, like many people, had elevated him too much, right? Incisive and perfect in many ways on race. Perfect with an asterisk. I don't know. I'm sure there's shit. I haven't watched many of his things recently. But like, you know, I saw him live when he was like working out that the first Netflix show, I think, or one of those. And it was like, you know, it's good when you know what you're talking about, and it's real bad when you don't. And it's just evident which is which. And that's like, okay. It's okay to not be perfect. It's maybe not as okay to be so immensely confident on everything. But that is to go back to other shit. That's Andrew Yang. That's Elon Musk. Like good in one domain, those guys making money in Silicon Valley. Like that doesn't mean you're good and on everything. And the weird thing where I guess some level of success starts to tell you that you are equally good at everything is another sort of incredibly damaging thing. Like, I don't understand. It's so weird to me that like, you can't just be like, I know I'm good at one thing. I don't know about other shit. It's like Elon Musk weighing in on sociological stuff or race or anything. I'm like, you know, why? Why do you think your opinion matters? And, you know, I guess it's some combination of ego and whatever.
Therapy, baby. Let's bring it back around and
I
do
know,
some
yeah.
That's straight up therapy.
And this conversation about perfection makes me understand your viewpoint as being someone who just doesn't necessarily believe that perfection is something that you should even strive for, that you should actually embrace all of the messiness and complicatedness of reality in life and not try to be perfect. I would say you're an imperfectionist.
Yeah, well, because it's like, what's the point of trying to be perfect? And like of acting like you are perfect. Acting like you are perfect is, you know, so damaging. We see it everywhere in our society. And then like the stress of not being perfect, I think is probably not good for people either.
Yeah. Perfect is the enemy of the good, right?
Yeah. I say that way too much in writers' rooms, actually. It never lands, but I'm like, this is kind of a perfect is the enemy of good situation. Like, yeah, that's very hard to show on screen, but I'm like, yeah, no, I know. But we're there, right? We're never quite there.
Will you please plug everything you're excited about and share where everyone can find you? Also, other stuff that people should be aware of.
I mean, right now it is unfortunately just, not unfortunately, but I think all I can talk about really is just Yosis Racist. Suboptimalpods.com is where you can subscribe to, you know, all the other stuff that we're doing. We do a show that's not about race, but it's still Tawny and I just talking. And then we have another tier that's like bundles. Most of my contribution to that tier is like watch-alongs of stuff. So you can see me, you can listen to me. My friend Cody Ziegler loves anime, and I do not. And we've done a couple anime watch-alongs that people have told me are very amusing. I hate it. And then unfortunately, Mixed Dish actually just got canceled. So that's sad for sure. I was really, you know, looking forward to working with everyone some more, but you know, I will again. And so, just figuring some stuff out and working on a thing that I hope I didn't say too much about already, but it's relatively autobiographical and I'm really excited about it.
Amazing. And next time we have you on, we'll have to talk about weed and food.
Yeah,
because we talked about so many other things.
That would be great. That would be wonderful. I think This was off the record. I did have a moment where I first signed on to the Zoom, and I was like, do I have to be stoned? Am I supposed to be stoned? And I really thought I might literally have to find the gummy that is in my house somewhere. It's here. I would have found it.
Come back.
We'll talk about that next time. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This is so fun. Thanks for letting me ramble. Apologies to the listeners.
If you want to follow us, we are at Weed and Grub on Instagram. WG@weedandgrub.com is our email. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes. Are you also, is Yo Is That Racist also Apple iTunes? They should leave a review there. It's everywhere.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it is there. Yeah.
5-star reviews all around.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Peace.
you. Bye.